Hello everyone, I'm Daniel, and I'm here to tell you about the summer vacation I spent at my grandparents' house. My parents, eager to give me a break from the city routine, decided I would spend a few weeks at the home of Don Francisco and Dona Carmen, a house that at first glance radiated warmth and tradition. My grandparents were always respected people in the small town where they lived. Everyone knew them for their smiles and willingness to help others. In my childhood, their hugs were a safe refuge, and their home was a place where I always felt loved. However, that vacation revealed unknown sides. The mornings began with the tempting aroma coming from the kitchen, where Dona Carmen would prepare breakfasts I'll remember forever: homemade tortillas, aromatic coffee, and the unmistakable taste of tradition. The walls of the house seemed to hold comforting secrets that only grandparents know. But as the days passed, I started noticing subtle changes in their behavior, a fleeting shadow in their eyes, an awkward pause in their laughter. I tried to downplay it, attributing it to the nostalgia of old age, but something didn't add up. The nights were, in appearance, calm. We dined together, shared stories and laughter, but in those moments, something in the house seemed to change. Distant whispers, barely perceptible, floated in the air. When I asked, my grandparents would simply smile and change the subject. One afternoon, while exploring the house's old library, I found a forgotten diary that belonged to my grandmother. In its pages were dark thoughts and secrets I had never imagined. It spoke of deep regrets and difficult decisions that had to be made. My curiosity grew, along with a disturbing feeling that the house held more secrets than my grandparents were willing to share. Little by little, the idea of a peaceful home faded, giving way to intrigue and mystery that began to color my days in that place. What were my grandparents really hiding in their seemingly tranquil home? That question marked the beginning of an experience that would change my life forever. My days at my grandparents' house continued, and though the appearance of normality persisted, a veil of unease hung over everything. The family laughter and conversations didn't manage to dispel the strange atmosphere that had settled over the house. One afternoon, while exploring the property, I ventured into a corner of the garden where I used to play as a child. There, I discovered a fenced-off area, a hidden space behind a curtain of vines and bushes. My curiosity, spurred by the feeling that something was out of place, drove me to open the door leading to that secret corner. To my surprise, I found a small room almost forgotten by time. The walls were decorated with strange paintings and symbols, and at the center, an improvised altar surrounded by burnt candles and odd objects. At first, I thought it might be a meditation spot for my grandparents, but their lack of spirituality or religion puzzled me even more. The next night, during dinner, I decided to mention my discovery. My question was met with silence and nervous glances. My grandparents exchanged looks, as if deliberating whether they should share the truth with me. In the end, Don Francisco sighed deeply and decided to tell me a part of the story that, according to them, had been kept hidden for far too long. It turns out that in her youth, my grandmother had been involved in activities I would have never imagined. A series of tragic events had left scars on her soul, and that small room in the garden was her refuge for dealing with those demons from the past. It was as if the house itself, with its hidden corners, absorbed the weight of the tragedy. Although their words explained some mysteries, the intrigue persisted. That night, as I tried to fall asleep in the room I had once considered safe, the whispers in the hallway intensified. As I got closer, I noticed they were coming from my grandparents' room. With the door slightly ajar, I caught a glimpse of a scene I will never forget: my grandparents, in the dim light of the room, surrounded by shadowy figures and the smell of incense lingering in the air. Upon realizing my presence, they quickly closed the door, leaving me with an inexplicable chill. It was at that moment I realized that the house, my childhood refuge, harbored much darker secrets than I could have ever imagined. Who were those figures in my grandparents' room, and what did that hidden corner in the garden mean? The uncertainty began to weigh more heavily than the tranquility I once found in that peaceful home. The unease had taken hold of me like a shadow stretching into every corner of the house I used to consider my haven. After the strange encounter in my grandparents' room, the feeling that something was wrong became almost unbearable. I decided to dig deeper into the story my grandmother had partially shared. I searched the local library, went through old archives, and finally stumbled upon a newspaper article that shed light on the dark past hidden within the walls of the house. Decades ago, the town had witnessed a series of mysterious disappearances. The victims, mostly young locals, were never found. The community lived in fear, not understanding who or what was behind these tragic events. My grandparents, then young as well, had participated in the search for the missing people and were hailed as local heroes when some of the victims were eventually found safe. However, my research also revealed disturbing details. Some of those rescued had no memory of their lost time. The town, relieved by their return, preferred not to delve into the details, and eventually, the disappearances became a forgotten chapter of local history. I returned to the house with this information swirling in my head. As I walked down the hallway, the old photograph of my grandparents holding a young woman smiled from its frame on the wall. That smile, which once brought me comfort, now seemed to raise more questions than answers. I decided to confront my grandparents with the truth I had uncovered. That night, during dinner, I asked them about the disappearances and their involvement in the search. Although they initially evaded my questions, they eventually admitted they had played a crucial role in those events. They told me that, along with other young people from the town, they had formed a group to face a dark force that had been preying on the community. They used rituals and symbols to protect people and, according to them, managed to save some souls trapped in the abyss between worlds. Although their intentions seemed noble, the method they used left behind unresolved mysteries and dark secrets the community preferred to ignore. The room in the garden, they said, was a place of reflection and purification to deal with the remnants of that turbulent time. Yet, despite their explanations, one question remained unanswered: why had they kept this dark chapter a secret? My grandparents claimed it was to protect the community from a truth that might be more terrifying than the disappearances themselves. The house, once a sanctuary of love and warmth, had become a stage where reality and the inexplicable intertwined in a disturbing way. As I delved deeper into the hidden corners, I began to understand that the truth behind the disappearances was far more complex and sinister than I had ever imagined. The darkness that had once haunted the community decades ago was still present, and my search for answers was only beginning. The night fell over my grandparents' house like a dark shroud, and as I dove deeper into the investigation of that dark chapter from the past, the tension in the air became palpable. Every corner seemed to whisper secrets, and the house, once full of happy memories, now echoed with the heaviness of hidden truth. After the revelation about my grandparents' involvement in the disappearance events, the air was charged with a disturbing energy. Seeking clearer answers, I decided to explore the room in the garden that they had described as a place of reflection and purification. Opening the door, I was enveloped by a mix of ancient and mysterious aromas. The faint candlelight flickered on the walls adorned with enigmatic symbols. At the center, the altar was filled with strange objects that, although I couldn't fully comprehend their meaning, instilled an ancestral fear. I sat in silence, trying to connect with the essence of that place. It was then that a fleeting shadow seemed to move in the corner of the room. My eyes focused on the barely visible figure in the dimness. Without warning, the figure vanished, leaving behind an echo of children's laughter. The surprise and confusion paralyzed me for a moment. There was something more in that room, something my grandparents had not revealed to me. I stood up, determined to uncover the truth hiding in the shadows. As I left the room, the laughter persisted in the hallway, guiding me toward my grandparents' room. The door was ajar, and a soft glow filtered from within. Stepping inside, I found myself faced with a scene that defied any logical explanation. My grandparents stood around a transparent, ethereal figure, my sister, the same sister who had disappeared without a trace years ago. Her presence, though lacking a solid form, radiated a warm and welcoming glow. My heart raced as I watched the family reunion that seemed to transcend the boundaries between life and death. The room was filled with a nostalgic and emotional atmosphere, laughter, tears, and unspoken words intertwined in a bond that neither time nor space could break. With tears in their eyes, my grandparents told my sister about the life they had led after her departure, about their fight against the darkness that had threatened the town. It was at that moment that I understood the reason behind the secrets they had kept so carefully. The connection between my grandparents and my sister transcended the tangible, and the truth was so extraordinary that the community could never have fully understood it. Protecting the people from the hidden reality had become their duty, even at the cost of bearing the guilt and weight of those dark days. The vision of my sister slowly fading left an emptiness in the room. The vision of my sister slowly fading left an emptiness in the room. The soft light and the echoes of children's laughter vanished, leaving behind a sense of peace and resolution. My grandparents, with a look of both satisfaction and pain, explained to me that the fight against the darkness never completely stops, but that night, thanks to our reunion, they had found a moment of relief. As I left the room, I reflected on the complexity of the truth I had uncovered. My grandparents' house, with its secrets and shadows, remained a place of love and protection. The story I've shared with you is just a small glimpse into that world, but I assure you, the secrets it holds could fill volumes. Darkness and light coexist in mysterious ways, and sometimes, only by scratching the surface can we glimpse the truth hidden in the shadows. The days following the revelation of the connection between my grandparents and my sister turned into a whirlwind of emotions. The house, once calm and welcoming, now resonated with the energy of the inexplicable. The duality between everyday life and the hidden reality became more evident with every step I took through the hallways. One afternoon, while exploring the local library in search of more information about the past events, I came across an old diary belonging to my grandmother. Its worn pages narrated her most intimate thoughts and the inner struggles she faced during those dark years. Reading her words plunged me into the complexity of her experience. The fear of losing her family and her determination to confront the unknown was reflected in every line. I discovered that my grandmother had not only battled external darkness but also her own internal shadows. As I delved deeper into the yellowed pages, I found references to an entity the villagers called the Shadow. It was said that this dark force was linked to the disappearance events and that, in some way, it had become trapped in the very fabric of reality. The shadow was not just an external threat, it was a manifestation of the deepest fears and regrets of those who faced it. My grandmother, along with my grandfather and other brave young people, confronted this entity in a desperate attempt to protect the community. But the truth they faced in their quest for darkness transcended any logical explanation. As I continued reading, the figure of my sister emerged as a key to understanding the connection between the shadow and our family. It seemed her disappearance wasn't simply a fortuitous act, but rather a kind of sacrifice that allowed the shadow to be sealed in the hidden corner of reality. With this new understanding, I confronted my grandparents. Though the truth was difficult to accept, I felt the need to fully grasp the story they had hidden from me. My grandparents, with expressions of regret and remorse, shared additional details about the nature of the shadow and the crucial role my sister played in its containment. The room in the garden, which had once been a place of purification, turned out to be the shadow's prison. My sister's special connection to that entity made her a kind of anchor, keeping it in a precarious balance. The children's laughter I heard in the room wasn't just my sister's, but also the echo of the shadow, an entity trapped between worlds. The truth resonated within me like a distant echo. Was my sister a victim or an unwilling heroine in this complex story of light and darkness? Although the answers weren't clear, I understood that my family had borne an extraordinary burden to protect the town, even if it meant sacrificing the normal life they had once known. The following night, we decided to face the shadow together. With the information gathered and determination in our hearts, we headed to the room in the garden, the epicenter of the connection between reality and the unknown. The atmosphere in the room was intense as we tried to release the shadow. Every symbol on the walls seemed to resonate with an ancient power, and my sister's presence, though ethereal, radiated a comforting force. In the end, with a flash of light and a faint whisper, the shadow dissipated like mist, releasing an energy that had been contained for decades. The room in the garden, once filled with mystery and darkness, was now bathed in a soft, comforting light. The echo of children's laughter faded, but the feeling of relief was palpable. Though my sister didn't return in physical form, she left behind a sense of peace that transcended reality. Although the community would never know the complete truth, we, as a family, had faced our demons and found a kind of redemption. My grandparents' house, with its secrets and shadows, became once again a refuge of love and warmth. As dawn broke, we said goodbye to the house that had harbored both light and darkness for decades. My family's journey had been extraordinary, a dance between the tangible and the inexplicable. As I closed the door to the house behind me, I knew that those days would remain etched in my memory as a unique and mysterious chapter in my family's history.